I had a breakthrough tech app idea that could revolutionize how local service providers connect with customers. In my family, we have always supported each other financially when starting new ventures. So naturally, I approached my parents for seed funding, confident they would back me. Their flat refusal shocked me to my core. What hurt even more was discovering they had secretly invested in my cousin Jake instead. His restaurant failed spectacularly, while my business thrived, despite their lack of faith. Before I tell you how my own family tried to claim my success after betting against me, let me know where you are watching from and hit that subscribe button if family business drama sounds familiar to you. I always knew I wanted more than the corporate grind. After earning my computer science degree from the University of Washington, I spent 5 years working for a large tech company in Seattle. The pay was good, benefits, excellent, but something was missing. I felt like a small cog in an enormous machine, my creative ideas often buried under layers of bureaucracy and corporate politics. During those years, I saved, diligently lived below my means in a modest one-bedroom apartment, and built connections in the tech industry, all while nurturing my dream of launching my own business someday. That someday arrived when I identified a significant gap in the market for local service providers. My idea was an app that would connect homeowners with verified local contractors through a streamlined, transparent bidding process. Unlike existing platforms, mine would verify all service providers through a rigorous background check system, guarantee workmanship, and implement an innovative pricing algorithm that ensured fair rates for both consumers and contractors. The platform would generate revenue through a small percentage fee on completed jobs rather than upfront listing fees, aligning our success with that of the service providers. Family has always been central to my life. Growing up in a suburban neighborhood outside Seattle, our extended family gatherings were frequent and lively. My Uncle Frank, a successful insurance agent, and Aunt Diana, a high school principal, lived just 20 minutes away with my cousin Jake. Our families celebrated holidays together, had monthly Sunday dinners, and genuinely supported each other through life challenges. But there was always something slightly off about how my parents, Howard and Margaret, treated Jake compared to me. When we were kids, Jake would bring home a B+ in science, and my parents would rave about his intelligence. When I brought home straight A grades, they would simply nod and say, "That is what we expect from you." When Jake made the junior varsity basketball team as a sophomore, my parents attended every game and cheered loudly. When I won the state mathematics competition, they skipped the ceremony because my dad had a golf game. The pattern continued into adulthood. Jake studied hospitality management at a state college, and my parents proudly told everyone about his career choice. My admission to a prestigious computer science program barely registered a mention at family gatherings. Despite this imbalance, I never doubted they would support my business venture. After all, they had helped my cousin Sandra start her boutique clothing store with a $20,000 investment. They had given my brother Ryan $15,000 to buy equipment for his landscaping business. They had even loaned Uncle Frank $40,000 when he wanted to expand his insurance agency years ago. For 6 months, I meticulously developed my business plan. I researched the market, thoroughly created detailed financial projections, built a working prototype of the app, and even secured interest from several local contractors willing to join the platform at launch. Every weekend, I refined my pitch deck, practiced my presentation, and calculated exactly how much seed funding I would need to get the business off the ground. I needed $75,000 to hire a small development team to finalize the app, implement the verification system, and fund initial marketing efforts. With this investment, my projections showed we could reach profitability within 18 months. I planned to give my investors a 15% equity stake, which, according to my conservative growth estimates, would yield a substantial return within 3 years. As I drove to my parents' house that fateful Friday evening, my car trunk contained professionally printed business plans. My laptop loaded with an impressive slide presentation and a bottle of my father's favorite whiskey to celebrate what I was sure would be the beginning of an exciting family venture. I felt confident, hopeful, and excited about the future ahead. The smell of my mother's famous pot roast filled the house as I walked through the front door. The dining room table was set with the good china, which I took as a positive sign. My father greeted me with a firm handshake, and my mother hugged me warmly. "So, our entrepreneur son wants to talk business," my father said with a smile that did not quite reach his eyes. "Let us eat first, then we can discuss your proposal." Throughout dinner, I could barely contain my excitement, occasionally mentioning features of my app that I thought would impress them. My mother nodded politely, while my father asked basic questions about the concept. The conversation felt slightly strained, but I chalked it up to their natural caution about investing money. After dinner, I set up my laptop on the living room coffee table and began my presentation. I had delivered this same pitch to former colleagues and received enthusiastic responses. But as I spoke, I noticed my parents exchange glances. My father checked his watch twice. My mother fidgeted with her reading glasses. When I finished, there was a long silence before my father cleared his throat. "Daryl, we appreciate the effort you put into this presentation. It seems very professional. But tech startups are incredibly risky. For every success story, there are hundreds of failures." My mother jumped in. "We just do not think we can tie up our retirement funds in something so speculative. We need to be practical at our age." "But what about the money you gave Sandra and Ryan?" I asked, trying to keep the hurt from my voice. "Those were different situations," my father replied quickly. "Physical businesses with inventory and assets, not an app that could be obsolete in 6 months. Our finances are tighter than you might think," my mother added. "Property taxes went up this year, and we had to replace the roof last fall." I left their house that night with my professionally printed business plans untouched in my car trunk, the celebration whiskey unopened. The rejection stung, but I was determined to find another way. I would prove them wrong. I would make my business succeed without their support. 3 weeks later, I was having coffee with Aunt Diana when she mentioned Jake's exciting new venture. "We are so proud of him for taking this step," she said, "and so grateful to your parents for believing in him enough to invest. $50,000 is such a vote of confidence." I nearly choked on my latte. My parents invested $50,000 in Jake's business. When about a month ago, she replied, looking confused at my reaction, "They did not tell you Jake is opening an upscale farm-to-table restaurant downtown. Your parents are silent partners." The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. My parents had rejected my meticulously planned tech business as too risky, only to turn around and invest in Jake's restaurant venture, a higher-risk industry with a notorious failure rate. That evening, I confronted them by phone. My father sounded defensive immediately. "Jake has actual experience in the restaurant industry," he argued. "He worked as a manager for 3 years. He understands the business. His concept targets an established market." My mother added, "People always need to eat. Your app idea depends on too many variables." What they failed to mention was that Jake's restaurant concept had significant flaws. His projected food costs were unrealistic for a farm-to-table establishment. His location had excessive rent and poor parking. Most critically, he had no contingency plans for the common setbacks in the restaurant industry. Over the following months, I threw myself into securing alternative funding. I applied for small business loans, but faced high interest rates due to the perceived risk of a tech startup. I pitched to local angel investors facing rejection after rejection. Meanwhile, I watched Jake's restaurant take shape with my parents' money. Family gatherings became increasingly tense. Jake would boast about the custom fixtures and imported kitchen equipment he was installing. My parents would beam proudly. When asked about my business, I would give brief updates, only to have the conversation quickly turn back to Jake's progress. "You should see the beautiful bar they just installed," my mother would say. "Solid mahogany, imported from South America. Maybe Jake could hire you to build a website for the restaurant, my father suggested, once completely missing the point of my entire career path and business concept. After being rejected by 12 potential investors and 3 banks, I finally secured a small business loan with a punishing interest rate and found 2 angel investors willing to take a chance on my concept. The terms were far less favorable than what I had offered my parents, but it was enough to get started. While Jake held a lavish opening party for his restaurant, complete with local food critics and influencers, I rented a small office space and hired 2 developers to help finalize the app. I worked 18-hour days coding late into the night after my team went home. I ate ramen noodles and peanut butter sandwiches to keep costs down. Every decision was made with extreme financial caution. 6 months into our parallel business journeys, the first signs of trouble appeared at Jake's restaurant. The initial buzz had worn off, and the reality of the high operating costs began to take its toll. Food critics gave mixed reviews, criticizing the inconsistent quality and high prices. Jake had to reduce staff, cutting back on the attentive service that was supposed to be a hallmark of his establishment. Meanwhile, my app launched with little fanfare but strong functionality. We started in just 2 neighborhoods, focusing on quality service providers and customer satisfaction. Word of mouth spread. Our user base grew steadily. By month 8, we had expanded to cover the entire Seattle metropolitan area. By month 10, we had launched in Portland and were preparing for expansion to San Francisco. Family gatherings became even more uncomfortable. Jake stopped bringing up the restaurant unless specifically asked. My parents would change the subject whenever business discussions arose. I later learned they had invested an additional $30,000 to help Jake through his cash flow problems. At our traditional Thanksgiving dinner, I noticed Jake looked stressed and gaunt. He barely touched the elaborate meal my mother had prepared. After dinner, he took a phone call in the backyard, returning with red-rimmed eyes. 2 weeks later, the announcement came. Jake's restaurant was filing for bankruptcy. He had accumulated over $300,000 in debt beyond the initial investment. My parents had lost their entire $50,000, plus the additional $30,000 they had injected later. I felt no satisfaction at his failure, only sadness for his dashed dreams and concern about my parents' financial situation. I knew they had dipped into their retirement savings to help him. At Christmas dinner, the mood was somber. Jake did not attend, having taken a temporary job in another state to start paying off his debts. The conversation was stilted until my father asked about my business. For the first time, I shared detailed information about our success. We had expanded to 5 cities, had over 10,000 service providers on the platform, and were processing nearly $1 million in services monthly. Our revenue based on our percentage fee was substantial and growing. I had repaid my initial loans and was now drawing a modest salary. As I spoke, I noticed my parents exchanging glances again, but this time they were different from the dismissive looks they had given during my initial pitch. These were calculating. After I finished updating them, my father cleared his throat and leaned forward. "You know, Daryl, it sounds like you have created something truly valuable there. Your mother and I have been thinking." My mother nodded encouragingly. "We are so proud of what you have accomplished. The thing is," my father continued, "we took a significant financial hit with Jake's restaurant. At our age, it is hard to recover from that kind of loss." A strange feeling crept over me as he spoke. Something in his tone set off warning bells. "Since we are family and your business is doing so well, I think it is only fair that we get some ownership stake. After all, family businesses are family assets." I stared at him in disbelief. "What exactly are you suggesting?" "Well," my mother interjected smoothly, "your father has excellent business experience. He could serve as an advisor. I could help with administrative tasks. We would expect a reasonable ownership percentage, of course, say 30%. For what investment?" I asked, my voice hollow. "We are your parents," my father said. as if that explained everything. We raised you, educated you, gave you the foundation to succeed. And now, the family needs to recover from a significant loss. The realization hit me like a thunderbolt. They had refused to invest in my business when I needed them put their money behind Jake instead, and now that I had succeeded through my own hard work and determination, they wanted to claim ownership of what I had built. Without another word, I stood up, gathered my coat, and walked out the door. For 2 weeks, I did not answer their calls or respond to their messages. I needed time to process the magnitude of their betrayal. They had not believed in me or my vision, but now wanted to benefit from my success. The hurt ran deep, threatening to consume me. During this time, I met with my business mentor, Sophia, a successful tech entrepreneur who had guided me through the early stages of my company. Over coffee in her downtown office, I explained the situation. They never saw the value in what I was building. I said, the pain evident in my voice. But now that it is profitable, suddenly they think they deserve a piece of it. How is that fair? Sophia listened carefully, then asked, "What do you want your relationship with your parents to be 5 years from now?" Her question stopped me short. Through all the hurt and anger, I had not considered the long-term impact of this conflict. Despite everything, they were still my parents. Could I sever ties completely? Did I want to? I want a relationship, I admitted, but not one where they view me as an extension of themselves or a resource to be tapped. I want respect as an individual and recognition for what I have accomplished on my own. With Sophia's guidance and my attorney's help, I crafted a formal response to my parents' proposition. I requested a meeting at a neutral location, a quiet conference room in my lawyer's office building. When they arrived, my father looked defensive, my mother anxious. I had prepared meticulously for this conversation, just as I had prepared for my initial business pitch. "I appreciate you coming," I began, keeping my tone professional and calm. "I wanted to address your proposal in person." I opened a folder containing documents that chronicled my business journey. Copies of my initial business plan. They had rejected the loan agreements with their harsh terms that I had been forced to accept bank statements showing the ramen noodle budget I had lived on, and finally the current valuation of my company. When I came to you for help, you declined, citing risk and limited finances. That was your right. But I succeeded anyway despite the obstacles. I secured funding at personal risk, worked countless hours, sacrificed my personal life, and built this company from nothing. No one gave me anything. My father started to interrupt, but I held up my hand. "Please let me finish. I understand Jake's business failure affected your finances. I am sorry about that. But my company is not a family asset. It is the result of my vision, my work, and my perseverance after your rejection." My mother's eyes had filled with tears. "We are your parents, Daryl. Family should help family." "I agree," I said softly, "which is why I have an alternative proposal." I explained that while I would not give them an ownership stake, I was willing to help in other ways. I offered to hire Jake, who had relevant customer service experience, for a legitimate position in my company where his skills would be valuable. I also offered to provide my parents with financial planning resources to help them recover from their investment loss. "But my business remains mine," I concluded firmly. "I need you to understand and accept that boundary." My father's face had reddened during my speech. "So you are just going to ignore everything we did for you growing up, the sacrifices we made, the opportunities we provided?" "I am grateful for my upbringing," I replied evenly. And I expressed that gratitude in appropriate ways. "But parenting does not entitle you to ownership of my adult achievements. Would you have made this same request if I had become a doctor or a teacher, instead of building a valuable company?" The question hung in the air between us. Slowly, reluctantly, understanding seemed to dawn in my father's eyes. My mother reached for his hand. We talked for another hour, painfully honest, about past hurts and present expectations. By the end, though tensions remained, we had reached a fragile understanding. They agreed to respect my business boundaries. I committed to helping Jake find appropriate employment and to maintaining our family relationship. As spring turned to summer, healing began gradually. Jake accepted a position in customer success at my company where his hospitality experience proved valuable. To his credit, he worked hard, never expected special treatment, and eventually became one of our top-performing team members. My parents and I established a new relationship based on clearer boundaries. I joined them for dinner monthly, but business discussions were off-limits unless I initiated them. Slowly, I saw them begin to recognize my accomplishments for what they were. 6 months after our confrontation, my company secured a major round of funding that would enable nationwide expansion. The night I received the news, I called my parents. "I wanted you to hear it from me first," I said. "We just closed a significant investment round. The company is now valued at $20 million. There was a pause before my father spoke. "That is incredible, Daryl. Truly. You have built something remarkable entirely on your own merit." Those words of recognition, without any hint of entitlement, meant more to me than any investment could have. Looking back on this journey, I realized how much it had taught me. I learned that sometimes the people closest to you cannot see your potential, not because they do not love you, but because they have fixed you in a certain role in their minds. I discovered my own resilience capacity for hard work and commitment to my vision. Most importantly, I learned that true support comes from those who believe in you from the beginning, not those who only recognize your value after success is achieved. I also learned the importance of boundaries. Love and business do not always mix well. Family relationships need clear parameters, especially where money is concerned. Today, my company continues to thrive, expanding to new cities each quarter. My relationship with my parents has evolved into something healthier than before, based on mutual respect rather than expectation. Jake has found his true calling in customer experience and is advancing in his career. As for me, I now mentor young entrepreneurs, especially those whose families do not support their dreams. I share my story to show them that rejection can become fuel for determination, and that sometimes you have to succeed not because of support, but despite its absence. Have you ever had family members underestimate your potential or try to claim credit for your success? Share your experience in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more real-life business journeys. Remember that sometimes the people who believe in you the least can motivate you the most. Thank you for listening, and I wish you strength in your own entrepreneurial journey.